Mr Speaker.
I call the honourable member David Cleandon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Kia ora koutou. Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take just a brief call to primarily just to advise the House that the Greens are very happy to support this bill through to Select Committee. Arguably it is overdue, as it was commented on by the previous Speaker, but better late than never. It's fair to say that the New Zealand economy, the finance sector at one time was probably over-regulated. There was far too much regulation, which was constraining, something of a damp blanket on business and enterprise and innovation. But clearly when the deregulation came and the change occurred, it came too quickly for the wrong reasons, and the pendulum swung far too far in the direction of deregulation. And many decent and honest New Zealanders paid the price quite recently with the collapse of finance companies. Clearly this bill sets out to put some oversight, some prudential regulation on the non-bank deposit takers, and that has to be a good thing. It's also good that we're not only talking about regulating the institutions, of course, but also that there will be some individual responsibility applied on this. For me personally, some of the most galling commentary post the collapse of the finance companies was the proposition from lots of people that it was all some terrible accident, some terrible mistakes had been made, and what a shame that was. In fact, we know very well that a large, at least significant part of the collapse was due to good old-fashioned greed, to people taking advantage, sharp practice, outright dishonest, fraudulent practice. And it's good to see that slowly the courts are catching up with some of the folk responsible for that. Sadly, some of them will no doubt escape legal process, but nevertheless this new legislation will empower the Reserve Bank to accredit and, if necessary, to remove directors, to get those people out of the sector who really ought not to be there. Not for a moment suggesting there are not a great number of people of considerable integrity in the sector, and that's what we need to aspire to as a minimum standard and get rid of the cowboys, essentially. We do need to regain the confidence of people with money to invest, to give people some safe haven for their funds, for their investment. People need to go into their investments, put money into these organisations, knowing that there is a level of risk that they understand clearly and that everything is transparent and that they've got a reasonable expectation that the reward will be appropriate to the risk that they are taking. Fair to say, I think our only initial misgivings around this bill was the inevitable danger with legislation that you're going to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. There are some smaller institutions, organisations. There was some concern about the potential for compliance costs on those smaller institutions that would not be appropriate to their size and scale, not least of all the credit unions, who have a very long and honourable history in terms of managing people's money in this country. I think that concern has been recognised and is shared by other parties. So while it's something we'll be keeping an eye on through the course of the Select Committee, we don't see any major concerns within that. We're particularly reassured that the Association of Credit Unions, for example, a key player in that sector of the market, if you like, are reasonably supportive of this bill. So simply to reiterate, we welcome this bill. We'd like to see it passed in a timely fashion, and we'll support it through the House. Kia ora.
I call the honourable member